All right, we're all ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, I am so ready.
So ready.
Great.
So ready.
Ready graphics? Ready theme?
Good evening. For your information tonight,
You know, like who this guy is. I never had an issue not knowing who this guy was.
Mm-hmm.
Never. He was so specifically drawn. And, you know, I think you have to like somebody to play them.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Some
and
quality.
I liked him. You know? Like, I should say like him. You know what I mean? Like, I love him.
Hi, this is Jessie Mullins.
And this is Lauren Milberger.
And we have a new interview episode for you.
We do. A very exciting one. We have Grant Shaud, a.k.a. Miles Silverberg.
You may know him as the young up-and-coming producer of FYI, now the more established producer of Murphy in the Morning. It's we have been looking forward to this interview for a very long time. You know how much we love our Miles. I mean, spoiler, Grant does nothing but be everything you want him to be. He's
Yeah, and
delightful.
I think we had a really great conversation about acting, about Miles, about the process. We'll finally get to hear that story that we've told, that Barnett has told about his audition experience.
Yeah, and hear about it from his side of the
Yes.
of the tape. So without further ado, please sit back and enjoy our conversation with Miles Silverberg himself, Grant Shaud.
Will the mystery guest please sign in?
Kate McKinnon.
Wow, it's such a
Yes.
get. I can't believe we got Kate.
I have been waiting to speak to you, Kate. You sound so different.
I've been wanting to come on your podcast for ever since I heard about it.
Oh, thank you. It means a lot to us.
Yeah,
We like
I'm,
fans of
I'm
fans.
usually busy on Saturday nights, and it's quite late with the after party and everything like that.
Oh, fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fair.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
But I wasn't too hungover today, so
We
Oh,
really
well,
appreciate it.
yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, a lot of skits last night. You might have seen.
I did.
I did. Your work with Liev Schreiber was iconic.
Yes, and Robert De Niro. I agree.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I blew them away. I think both of them.
Literally?
Good girl, Lauren. Good girl.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, right out of the chute.
I literally can't walk past a joke. Sometimes it's like rubbernecking.
No.
Just like, oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I just can't.
But that's good. That's, comics will tell you that. They can't edit themselves.
Yeah.
They can't. You shouldn't. You're never going to be brilliant.
It's someone else's job to edit.
Yeah.
So if those of you do not recognize the voice of our guest, this is Grant Shaud, right? That's you?
Hi, gang. Yes, it's
Hi,
me.
it's you.
It's me. Glad to finally be here.
We're so glad to
Oh,
have
we're so
you here.
Thank you. I'm thrilled.
Aw.
Yeah.
Can't be as thrilled as we are.
Oh, I
No.
am. This is every day for you guys. This is a special.
Well, it's exciting for us because we feel like we grew up with Miles in many ways.
I do too.
And so it's
Yeah, well, you
I would
really
hope
have.
so.
Yeah. Yeah, I was 28 when I got Miles. Was I 27 or 20? Yeah, I was 28 years old. And I'd been up in New York about 4.5 years.
Oh, wow.
And I looked much younger than I was, which was helping me get parts that were younger.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yes.
So, life changer, game changer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We definitely very specifically want to talk to you about your audition experience. But before we actually launch into that, we like to start with what we call the origin story and learn a little bit about you before Murphy happened. Where'd you come from?
I grew up outside Philadelphia. I was born in Evanston, Illinois, but my parents moved back to Philadelphia, where they were both from, in about 9 months after I was born. So I really grew up outside Philadelphia, where my parents are from. And I had this secret desire. Like, where I grew up, you didn't go into the arts. You know, you went, you worked for a financial firm is really what you were groomed for. And that was like an honorable way to make a living. And so I had this like sort of secret, passion for movies and actors and stuff like that. But I didn't let myself think that was something that I could do. It seemed just too far out of reach, but it never left me alone. So I kept trying to go on with my life. I went to college. I went into the business school because that's what my parents wanted. I failed out in a semester because it wasn't my thing, it wasn't what I wanted to do. And it took 3.5 years of basically kind of failing at everything in college before I went, am I going to live my whole life and not do what I want to do? First, I had to realize I wanted to do it. But I saw everybody else going off and getting on with their lives, and I kind of realized one of the things that was holding me back was what everybody else would think if I wanted to be an actor.
Yeah.
What are people going to think, or people are going to think I'm foolish, or there's that. And but it just never went away. So it was last semester, senior year, and I went out for a play in college, and it was like 5 lines. It was Henry V. And it was kind of like a walk-on thing, but I just needed to see if I could get on a stage in front of like my fraternity brothers in tights and say 5 lines of Shakespeare. And I figured it was just like a little test. I'm like, if I can do that. And also there was that, I had to walk through that fear of like, what are they going to think? And I was shocked because, you go to a fraternity party afterwards and, they were coming to see the play usually as part of a class or something like that. And they'd be like, I didn't know you were into that. You know what I mean? Like in our minds, it's like this big thing.
I think that's always it, particularly when you're younger. You everything becomes bigger, and then it happens, and you go, "Oh, people don't care as much as I do."
No.
Yeah, people do not. Everyone's worried about themselves in the same way, but we always think that the because as humans we can only see it through our own filter. But there is that. And I mean, I know Lauren and I definitely understand from the standpoint of people being like, oh, are you still doing the acting thing?
Right.
Because it is this world that people don't understand. The idea of auditioning being a new interview for every single thing you're going to do, that it's confusing. And it's this weird otherness that the secular world, as I will call it, doesn't fully grasp.
No, nor would they want to. Like the idea of living like that, of having a new job interview every day, would be very off-putting, I think, to a lot of people.
And it's hard to even explain that.
Yes.
Even when, because I think that's the best way to explain to someone who doesn't know about auditioning that it is a job interview. But I still do that, and it's people are like, oh, okay, I kind of understand, but they really don't on a visceral level.
Well, and the thing I try to oh no, go.
No, you go. I'm going to follow you.
What a gentleman. I was going to say that when I go home and I speak to my family, generally understands. I was on stage at 3 months old, so my whole family did community theater and they get it. But when I talk to my sister's in-laws and they ask, they're like, what's it like to audition? And you have to kind of say, when you go into an interview, you have your documents that prove your skills. You have a word per minute that you might have to demonstrate. For us, a resume doesn't show a performance, so we're showing our skills. We have to prove, in the same way that you can articulate how to use an Excel document, I have to show that I can do the tap number that I claim I can.
Right.
Yeah, that actually reminds me, I was just talking to someone about this yesterday, because when I started out and I was doing a lot of student films to try to build my reel, I'd get a lot of, you've been cast. And they didn't understand that they had to audition me, because the thought was, well, I see your resume. You have credits on it. I'm going to hire you, and I'm going to hire a sound guy. And great. Okay, we're good. I would usually say, well, let me meet you first at least, if you don't, be sure it's legitimate and everything. But the first one I did, after I forced him to meet me, I got on set, and the other actor was not very good, and I had to help her a bit, and he ended up doing a lot more stuff on me, and it sort of started to dawn on me, they don't even understand, because they've never met actors before, they've just been in film class, that it's not the same thing. It's not just about your skills on your resume, it's about what's in front of them.
It's really interesting too, because I've met directors who take acting classes, which I think is very wise on their part. I agree, yeah. Because, how can you direct somebody to do something if you don't understand what it is they're doing?
Yeah, Columbia does that.
Well, and on the same level, the idea that actors should also work in the other disciplines to understand the other people they're working with. Because the ensemble of the production, it's very easy to kind of be the pretty horsey that's taken out of your stable to perform and then put back in with your sugar cube. Yeah. But on both sides of it, to really get to know the director, to understand how an actor works, to be able to communicate, and for the actors to understand how the rest of production works, so you understand that you are just part of a whole.
Yeah, that was the big difference with me with grad school and undergrad. Because in undergrad, we hung the lights and we did the set and we did everything. And I don't know about how DePaul, but my grad school, we didn't do any of that. Now, the directors took and the writers took acting classes, but that was about it. And then when we actually went into production, I saw some people be not really nice to the stage managers and any of the tech people. And that's when that dawned on me. I was like, oh, they don't know what it's like. I mean, they should still be empathetic, and these people are helping them out and making them look good. But beside that point, they had not had the experience of hanging a Lico and knowing how hard that is.
Right.
And, it's so important,
Right.
I think.
Grant, I wanted to ask you, because I know that especially the Philly area right now is booming as far as theater and performance and art. It's kind of the quiet city that a lot of people are leaving New York to go to Philly and work because the theater scene is incredibly popular and productive. Is that a new experience? Was it like that when you were younger?
No. I mean, Philly was a sports town when I was growing up, and I think that's been gradual over the last couple decades. First, Philly's really kind of come up culturally, but I think people who were doing in theater in Philly, let's say 20 years ago, were very much sort of on their own. But now I think you're right. I think because of Philly basically being the sixth borough, and everybody coming down there, and it's a very livable city, and everybody coming down there to do theater. I'm sure I actually did not know that. That's kind of really great to hear.
No. Yeah, it's really popular now. I know a lot of people who want to break into the Philly scene.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of actors who live out there and they commute up for auditions.
Right.
I mean, it's also because it's just so expensive in the city now.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I get in my car, I drive 2 hours, I park, I audition, I get in my car, I drive back.
Yeah, 2 hours is not that bad.
No.
It takes me an hour and a half to get to most places because I'm so far into Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's really not. It's just the driving can get a little weird.
Yeah.
But,
No, I had read, which I didn't know, and it may not be correct, on your CBS.com bio. Did you have a degree in journalism?
I did. I did graduate with a degree in journalism. I don't take that much credit for it because I showed up and I got the degree, but I think I went into journalism after I failed at business. I went into journalism because I thought I might want to be a sports writer. I was really trying to find out what I want, and that was kind of a passion of mine. And but when I started to get kind of adrift of the ins and outs of becoming a journalist and what you have to go through to become one, and I didn't burn for it enough, and I kind of knew that, but I wasn't going to switch majors again.
Yeah.
So I just I just saw the journalism degree out and then went out for that play in the last semester.
Yeah, but do you feel that it was helpful working on Murphy Brown or no?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Just a fun little factoid now.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
There, I don't think there was anything about being a journalism major that influenced me at all on Murphy.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
You didn't bring it up in your audition?
No. No, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that's what they're looking at. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've heard the stories of you getting the role.
Yes, we've told a version of it. Barnett has told a version of it. It's one of, ours, I think, definitely mine, favorite audition story. And a story that really could not happen today.
No.
Which is also, I think, what makes it interesting. But what is your perspective on your audition for Murphy Brown?
I'm dying now to know what Barnett told you.
Everything.
Because he told me sort of what was going on his end. So
Yeah.
that's kind of secondhand. But I'll tell you what I know, which is
Yeah.
I thought pilot season was over. I was dying to just have anything take me to Los Angeles. I was doing theater for, like I said, 4.5 years, which is not very long. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But as we know, it's like the best training ground, just bar none. And but I was because I started at acting late. I was kind of in a real hurry. I'm like, if I'm not successful right away, I'm never going to be successful. And there was this whole sort of youth obsessed thing I had going, if I don't hit, when I'm young, then I'm going to age out and then it'll never happen. It was a lot of doomsday thinking because I came to it late. So I was kind of like always in a panic, which was kind of good because it drove the train. But it was also like, I'd have an audition and I'd like stomp around after it was over and they would be like laughing at me because I was just like throwing a fit, Yeah, everything was so heightened. But I thought it was another pilot season, and then I had actually auditioned for something that I wanted very bad and I didn't get it. And I'm like, oh, here it is, another, another year in New York, waiting tables, and hopefully getting some more plays and back to waiting tables and blah blah
And
blah.
were you were in Torch Song Trilogy?
I was. That was my first job.
That was your first job?
Yeah.
The first
It was
job?
ridiculous.
Who did you
I know.
replace?
I was hired. The audition. I had literally gotten an agent 3 days before.
Wow.
I was like
Wow.
walking into offices and getting doors slammed in my face. But this one guy had a conversation with me. This guy Michael Kingman, and he's like, "All right, well," and I did a monologue for him. I know I was awful, and he went, "All right, well." He's like, "We'll send you out, and we'll see how we like you, and you see how you like us." I was like, "Great." He got me 3 auditions in 3 days. One was for like an after-school
Whoa.
special. One was for, I can't remember what else. But then the third was a national tour of Torch Song
Oh, it
Trilogy.
was a national tour, excuse me.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the audition was on the Broadway stage.
Oh, nice.
So I went there, I
Cool.
auditioned, I thought I bombed. I stomped up the center aisle, and they were laughing at me. And like the reader was like, "It really wasn't that bad," and the people sitting in the seats were laughing at me, and they were like, "Grant, how old are you?" And I went, 18, because
Yeah.
it was to understudy both a 16 or like a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
So I like lied about my age, and they knew I was lying, and that made them laugh even more. It was like humiliating. And I went down to the restaurant, and I got a call from my agent, and he said, "I'm coming down." And he was like, "Not only did you get the part," he said, "they're keeping you to understudy on Broadway." So I
That's
thought,
amazing.
Oh, I've heard stories like that. So that you sort of practiced and then went on the tour later? Or
No, I
Oh,
never
you
went on
didn't.
the tour.
Oh, that's why I was confused. So you were, okay, because I thought I misunderstood and just
No.
read it wrong.
which was such a great thing because I had just gotten there. I'd literally been there for 4.5
Yeah.
months. I had just gotten an agent, so to leave on a tour, I mean, I certainly would have gone.
Yeah.
But it was nice to. I mean,
Yeah.
you're on Broadway and and you're still in New York, and it was like being shot out of a cannon.
Yeah.
I was like
How
pretty
long
much
did you do the
terrified the whole
show?
time. 8 months.
Have you seen the revival?
I have not. Is it downtown?
No, it's on Broadway now.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Oh, yeah.
originally off Broadway, I believe, and it's part of Second Stage, and they transferred it.
Is Harvey in it?
No.
Oh yeah, and then after that closed, I was in the last 8 months of that, and then that closed, and then I got into Drew Horowitz play.
Oh, great.
That was great. I got a Stephen Metcalf play at the Vineyard Theater, so I just started getting theater, and then I joined EST, and then
Yeah, we've talked about EST a lot. What was your experience at
have.
EST?
EST was a game changer.
That's what everybody says.
for me.
Yeah.
EST, and it's not the EST now. Like EST's really hot.
Yeah.
I think the young.
Yeah.
I think the
Youngbloods.
Youngblood
That
has
came out of my grad school.
Yeah, did it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Youngblood, the Youngblood program has made EST kind of like everybody wants in now.
Yeah.
But yeah, EST has had really hard times over the years. You know what I mean? But that was the place where suddenly like a day I was just doing stuff all the time. Their readings, one acts. It was like a gym. It was like belonging to like a really, and you've got these playwrights and you've got these other actors and you've got these directors and everybody's there to hone their thing. So everybody's getting something out of it.
Yeah.
It was really great. EST to this day.
Who were you there with?
Oh man, who was I there with? Geneva Carr. Do you know Geneva?
Yeah, I do know that name. Yeah.
Yeah, Geneva. So many people. I mean, the members there are like John Turturro and John Voight, and I mean,
Yeah.
there's like ridiculous. The member list is,
Yeah.
but they're never around anymore.
When you go there, you just see they have all the pictures on the walls. And
Yeah.
so it's always so impressive to see, Christine Baranski
Yes.
and all of these people
Yeah.
who throughout the years, particularly during the time when you were there,
Yes.
who went through EST. And
Yeah.
it really takes your breath away just seeing,
Yeah.
every face you recognize.
Yeah, the One Act Play Festival is
It's
like
great.
when I went and saw my first EST One Act Play Festival, I was like, I got to be a part of this. Like, I just got to be a part of it.
And you came back. I think I saw you in one years ago.
Yeah, I've been in a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You played a giraffe.
Oh yeah, that was funny. Reunions.
Yeah.
Got a high school reunion. I wasn't the giraffe. I was a pirate.
Oh, you were a pirate,
Yeah,
excuse me.
yeah.
Sorry.
But that was a Billy Aronson play. That was like
was fun.
a great play. Yeah.
So, Murphy Brown. Mm-hmm. You were about to tell your audition
My
story.
audition story.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, I'm making this longer.
No. I was just reminding you.
So
We could talk about
this
theater
was
all day.
this was before cell phones.
Yeah.
And we had answering machines. And before that, we had answering services where you'd call in for your messages, and they'd be like, "You have an audition tomorrow at
Like bells are ringing.
Ronnie." That's what I was with. Was bells are ringing? You know, bells are ringing.
Well, so bells are ringing is
Yeah.
named after a musical.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
why I know bells are ringing.
Oh,
but,
okay.
but I
Yeah.
know that there was a bells are ringing. You're right.
That was
I wasn't
and that was
referencing that.
Yes,
but that reminded me. I did hear that they named in service after the
they
musical.
did. But,
Yeah, they
But
did.
at this point, we had answering machines, and I blew the audition for that one I really wanted. Mm-hmm. And then I was doing a play reading over at what is it, St. Vincent's over there on West 46th Street.
Oh yeah.
And I was away. I was out all day rehearsing that, and then the reading was at night. And I get home that night, and there's like 5 panic messages on my machine saying, "You have to be on a plane tomorrow morning. You're going to Los Angeles. You're
Wow.
going to test for this
Jeez.
thing." And the audition was weird because I got called in for it. I read it. I was like, "Oh, I think I could do this." And I went in and I auditioned, and the casting director stopped my audition, and she went, "Yeah, you're not doing it right, basically." And she gave me a piece of direction that I thought was sending me in the wrong way, but she was, and I tried to sort of be like,
Yeah.
well, it was a monologue where I'm supposed to freak out as Miles does. And
Yep.
she's like, well, you need to kind of freak out right away. And I said, well, I want to be able to build. I want to have some place to go. She was like, I'm telling you what they want. And I'm like, okay. So I did it that way. And that was back when they would literally send the tape to Los Angeles, and they would put little stars next to the name of the people they really wanted them to look at. And I didn't have a star next to my name. And it was getting really down to the wire. I think it was in the last week before they were going to shoot the pilot, and they still hadn't cast my part. And they had almost actually given it to one actor.
Actually, we were told by Barnett that they gave it to him and they took it away
Yeah.
because we thought that too. We had heard that it was almost, and he went, "No, I had to take it away."
Yep. Da-na-na-na.
Did he say why he did that?
Diane woke up in the morning and said it's just not him
Yep. She knew it wasn't right.
because they didn't want to do it to begin with because it wasn't the part, but they had to do it. And she slept on it and woke up and was like, "I just can't."
It's that magic of Diane English. She just knew.
See? You guys
she
know
knows.
more than I do.
No, but we didn't even know though.
No, we had to get that from Burnett.
We were interviewing Barnett, and I literally said, "So you almost?" He said, No, not almost." Now maybe this was something they didn't want to put out there at the time because
No.
it was so fresh,
Right.
but yeah, so that's new.
Wow. So the tape gets there, and you tell me if this,
Okay,
goes along
we
with
will.
Barnett's story. So the tape gets there, and they fast forward to people with their stars next to their name, and it wasn't working for them. And I think Diane and Joel left the room, and then my audition came on after one of the ones that they had wanted to look at. And Barnett was sitting there and watched me, and he went out and got them, and he said, "Look at this guy." And they did, and they were like, "Let's fly him out to test."
Our understanding is that there was no sound because they were
Yeah.
fast forwarding.
That
There
they
was
just
no
So originally they caught you on a fast forward
they were fast forwarding and then saw you.
and then went wait and went back.
Oh,
Yeah.
So that's very impressive to us,
right.
Because something came off that screen that you were right for the part,
Right.
without even seeing you talk.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Something about you acting at hyperspeed spoke to them.
Yeah. I always was fascinated with that story growing up because it was such an amazing story. But now even today, I'm fascinated with it because it would never happen.
Why would it never happen today?
Because there's no fast forward.
Because it would be select digital clips.
Right.
I've been a reader a lot for pilots.
Right.
And I remember being a reader, and this was a Tony-nominated actor in the room. They left, and I watched the casting director put the audition in the trash.
Yep.
And not even send it to LA because they don't have to send everything. They only have to send the clips.
Yep. They get to pick and choose and create that digital copy, which
Yeah.
does not include the tape of everybody else as well.
Because you weren't starred.
Right.
So nowadays, I think
Yeah.
you would have been in the trash on a desktop.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot. I don't know how you guys feel, but like, there used to be a sense that whether you went to Juilliard or Yale or were right off the street, that if you were in that room, you had as much of a chance to get it as anybody else. There used to really be that sense in
Oh,
the
yeah.
80s. I don't know if that's true anymore. I
You
don't
know,
know if they're making lists
yeah.
and offering it to people while we're reading, and I don't know.
I don't know. I think that once you're in the room, I want to think that is true. I think it's harder to get in the room.
It's- yeah.
Because, like, there's so many showcases now. Like every school does a showcase. And it's harder, at least it was, I know, when I graduated from undergrad as opposed to grad school. But anyway, is that I find that it's hard to get them to look at the beginning, agents and casting directors.
Yes.
Sorry, agents, I should say, and managers. Because they're only going to go to the top schools. They don't have as much time anymore.
Yes.
They need more money because just the way that everything works right now, they're not going to make as much money on people. I mean, I remember after 9/11, there were a lot of character actors who got dropped because their agents and managers felt that everything had slowed down now. The economy wasn't great, and the character actors were not going to work as much. So they dropped a lot of them. A lot of my friends lost their representation.
Which is insane.
Yeah, and so they were focusing more on the leading men and women type. So, like,
Right.
I mean, I don't know, but this is the impression that I get is that when I talk to casting directors, they seem a lot more open, but they're not seeing everybody because those people maybe don't have representation.
Right.
There's also the elephant in the room that is the new world of social media and self-submission that has
Yes.
really changed the game.
Yeah.
So getting representation is a much different animal than it used to be. And now, I mean, to get in the room, you can either get yourself in with your own promotion and marketing and submission techniques. You can try to get representation, but also representation tends to be oversaturated these days. And
Yeah.
we can also now with, in some cities, it's much more in New York than it is in Chicago or LA, but the pay to play workshop,
Yes.
where you get yourself in front of the casting director sans representation.
Yes.
So they are the marketing rule of 7 of getting yourself in front of something enough, like the Bed Bath & Beyond coupon, so you're just constantly thinking about Bed Bath & Beyond, is now a rule of 15 or more because there's
Yeah.
just so much data and faces coming in front of us, and people are getting cast off of Twitter these days.
Right.
Yeah. And also I found, because I really came up when paper play became really the thing. And I worked for a school that did it. So I really sort of learned that as much as the idea of it sucks, it was really helpful. And I would meet tons of people who were very positive and then nothing, maybe, a couple auditions. But then when I got representation, they all started calling me in. So they did actually like me. They just didn't remember because there were so many people, as opposed to now I'm in their face every day. Oh, that's right. I do like Lauren.
Yep.
So that also I felt showed me as well, is that they just need to be reminded. And if you have representation, it's just going to happen more. But it seems harder to get that now. And also a lot of managers are working like agents, but still
They
take
are.
50%.
Yep.
That I feel like that is a new thing the last 10 years.
Right.
It really is.
Right. What you guys are speaking to,
Yeah.
which is just the pure volume.
Yes.
And how fast everything goes now. And I hear if you have a reel, it's got to be, you know what I mean? Like nobody has attention spans
No,
anymore.
now they want you to clip everything.
Exactly.
Yep. You can't do a full scene.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And I don't know. It to me, it feels like it's making it harder.
Yeah. It feels it to us. but
Definitely.
Well,
We're a different level than you are.
even our new episodes, which are 21 minutes long, and they used to be 24.
We talk about that all the
A
time.
lot.
It's so
What's lost
it's so
for time.
painful. Yeah.
Yeah, you can feel a difference
You really can.
to
yeah.
what they used to be. Yeah, and there's nothing they can do about it.
No,
I mean,
that's the thing. Is there's nothing anyone can do about it. Although Will and Grace gets 22, which I don't understand.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I noticed that on the Hulu count.
Yep.
I think it all has to do with I don't know.
I mean, it's a different network. So,
yeah, and also I don't know, how bad do they want you back?
Yeah.
Then you can kind of name your.
And also, yeah, what advertisement deals they have and where the ads are willing to give back a little time, the deals
Right.
that network might have with their advertisers might give them those extra seconds.
Right.
Yeah, no. Gina said it was 21 minutes and 15 seconds that you guys get.
Really.
Yeah. That extra 15 seconds.
I don't know how they do it.
I don't know how they do it either.
Yeah, but they do it well. I mean, but it's tough. We're 4 or 5 minutes long every week,
Yeah.
and we have to cut it down.
Yeah, that's been the most interesting thing about going to the filmings is seeing what is cut. Yeah, and how you do it. And a lot of the cuts reminding me, which I've spoken about on the podcast, of the syndication cuts.
Yes.
Where they just cut right to the dialogue.
Lauren, I don't remember what order we're going to be dropping these, but we just talked about Anchors Away in season 2, and just the quick moment of cutting to Jim at his send-off wearing the bra over his trench coat and missing him opening it.
And saying who it's from.
We just cut straight to him wearing it and reacting to it.
I mean,
in
the syndication cuts are more brutal a lot of the times.
Mm-hmm.
These are very deft, obviously. But it was just reminding me of that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that's what we've been doing, is that we don't have the original cuts from season 2 on, obviously. So someone at Antenna TV taught us that, is that if you take 2 different syndication cuts and put them together, you can find all the cut scenes.
You can get the whole
interesting.
script.
Yeah. And then sometimes
Interesting.
Corby will send us the script too, so that's helpful. But also the script, not so much, because it can be, shooting script.
Right.
And not necessarily.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd love to also hear the story of when you flew out, because
Yeah.
I understand that was also interesting.
Yeah, that was so I flew out and they put me at this like Howard Johnson's or something like that in the valley. And I went over to, which was near Warner Brothers, and I went over to Warner Brothers and met Diane and Joel and Barnett and read for them in their office. And that was just like one of the best experiences of my life, because they were just, I don't know, there was a kismet sort of going on, like a meant to be thing that you feel it in the moment. And I don't know, everything just so sort of, when something's meant to be, I find everything just sort of falls into place, and it's rather, and then they were like, okay, you're going to read at CBS tomorrow. And I go over to CBS the next day, and Diane meets me outside of this room that I'm going to be reading in, and she's like, look, they don't mean to, but they're going to be sitting there with their eyes crossed, their arms crossed, and it's a windowless room, and there's no air in there, and it's kind of dark, and we're going to be sitting in the front row. Do it for us just like you did yesterday.
That's a gift.
Please,
Diane.
just do it for us. And I go in, but the energy was so thick in the room that it wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same. And they told me to go wait outside, and I went outside, and I turned around as they were closing the door, and I could see Diane looking at me, like to make sure I was out of the room, and then I saw her turn back to them as the door was closing. And apparently Kim LeMaster said, keep looking.
Oof.
And she said no. She said, nope, this is my guy. So you don't have that anymore either, because people are so intent on getting on the air. They're just like, oh, okay, I'll do that, I'll do that. You don't have Diane Englishes anymore who are like, no, this is my plane, I'm going to fly it. If we're going to go down, I'm going to be flying it.
Well, and Diane is, notorious for this story, the story about casting Candace and walking back in and the empowerment of her as a showrunner, as a writer, as an icon for especially young women growing up, watching how she really took the reins of her project and knew what was best for it and was right.
Yeah. That's the thing, is like, she's got this quality where she can be firm but not off-putting. You know what I mean? Like, she's not coming from this place of insecurity, my way or the highway. She's just like, no, we're going to do it this way, and here's why. You know what I mean? She used to be an English teacher, apparently.
Yeah, I heard that.
And she's got that, add the left column with the right column, and do that, you know what I mean? So she has a presence that sort of people have to pay attention to, and usually end up concurring with, or don't want to go against.
Yeah.
But it's not because they're afraid of her. She's just so solid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she's just so in her skin.
Well, and the confidence
Yes.
of her conviction.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, it
It's the
inspires you to
confidence
agree. So what was that wait for you like? When did you actually find out?
Oh, so they were in the room, that was going on, and I was maybe waiting out there maybe 5 minutes, maybe not that long, but she came out and she was like, congratulations.
Wow.
And yeah, I went from literally, I literally found out on my answering machine the night before.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, like, I have this job, and they said, okay, we're going to start shooting Monday. And I said, this was like a Wednesday. I said, I don't have any clothes.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we don't want you to go back and fly back again. We don't want you to be tired. So
Yeah.
we'll give you a little clothes allowance. And they moved me into another hotel. And yeah, it was, and I had no idea that it was, well, I shouldn't say that because when we shot the pilot, I was the guy going, well, yeah, this is going to be a hit. We've got Candice Bergen. The script is great. You know, like this is going to be a hit. And Joe Rigobuto was just like, be quiet. This never happens. You know, like
Yeah, he had a lot of pilots in
Yeah, he
the
did.
series that didn't go.
the associates with Jim Brooks, and
Yeah.
you know, they had everybody from Jason Robards to Martin Short to Cloris Leachman to, I mean, they had everybody.
I've
that.
heard about the show still,
Yeah.
and it was only on for one season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just had the beautiful bliss of not knowing any better.
Yeah, it's really a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Kind of is. Yeah. Yeah. Well, don't you find, like, in order to just even attempt to do what we do, you have to have this sort of like, no matter how it works out, this is what I'm going to
Yep.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And in a way, that's sort of what I like about it. I like the fact that your life can change in a moment.
Yes. Absolutely.
Nothing is set. You know, tomorrow is literally a new day in
Yeah.
this business, and it could change everything.
Completely. I mean, the show coming back, I was living in Pennsylvania. I'd done a play in Trenton, in New Hope, another one in Trenton, and then we moved up to West Orange. I mean, I was just like sort of like doing theater around the tri-state area, like, and this wasn't even, you know, reboots and stuff like that wasn't even on the horizon. So, like you said, it could just change it. But that's why we have to keep faith.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to have a faith that, you know, we don't talk about, but it's got to be there. It's like, why do I think this is somehow going to work out? Otherwise, why would we keep showing up every day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I hate to jump ahead to the revival before we
Please.
talk about the classic series, but something you said that obviously no one had any idea. But how long did you know that this was a possibility for the revival? When did they contact you?
I'm so bad at timelines. I want to say, like, maybe Diane first mentioned it a year ago.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But
So you know that there was a possibility long before anyone did.
Yeah. Maybe it was more like 6 months.
Okay.
And she sent us an email and she said, you know, Warner Brothers wants me to write a script, but I'm not going to put you guys in it until I hear from you that you would want to be in it. And
Yeah.
you're like, yeah. Wait. Another play in Trenton. Go back on Murphy Brown. But I kid about Trenton. It was amazing. Both plays. Yeah. So I'm gonna say 6 months. And then there were a lot of emails going back and forth. I'm a lousy emailer, but you know, a lot of like, have you heard anything? You know. And you know, you're powerless. You just sit,
you gotta wait.
You just sit and wait to see.
What was your experience in the first season? This is new for you. You have a lot of veterans that you're working with. Miles definitely is a standout character in the
Yes.
first season. What was your experience?
Like being shot out of a cannon.
Yeah.
Really. Like there was something very getting back to that sort of like things just happening. I don't want to say effortlessly because I was terrified, but things just kept happening well. Things just kept going well. You know, like the writing and the, you know, and I think that part was meant for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mean, the story you just told, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. So there's that. I just read this little article where the guy was saying, nurture's important, but nature is really kind of everything.
It's
Like we all
everything.
come in with this, you know, whatever. We're like, where did you get your desire to act? Where
Yeah.
did you get your desire to act? You know what I mean? That's not nurture. That's just something that was in us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? And there was something about Miles that was just meant for me.
Yes.
That no matter what, there were so many instances where that should not have happened. I mean, I was such a last-minute entry, and the fact that they did not cast it before then, and the fact that they went out the last week before the pilot and went, well, let's roll the dice, you know, like not even knowing I was alive. And so that kind of, when we started shooting, there was something about that meant to be-ness that kind of just, I felt like was sort of propelling the whole thing for me.
Well, and I would also say because Miles is he's not a secretary. Like he's not a character that could be anybody and was flexible. Like he's a pivotal linchpin of Murphy's experience coming back to work, of what she butts up against. Like the fact that they were willing to roll the dice and look for that person who was meant to play this role, it was no small feat. Miles is incredibly important. We talked about at the end of the first season that his arc with Murphy and Corky's arc with Murphy that first season really are the center of the heart of that initial season. And so to roll the dice on a character that is that influential, even in that first script, there's a reason for that. It's because they were looking for Miles.
I think so, and I certainly did. I had done a pilot, but in New York, but they just completely recast everybody that had been hired in New York. They moved it to L.A. and they just completely. So I was fired. You know what I mean? I had so little television experience and 4-camera experience. I mean, but there was something that it wasn't. I don't know how to say this. Like the acting part of it wasn't hard. The cameras weren't hard. I think it was more the just kind of keeping myself together. Like I remember just we had these dressing rooms. They were these boxes. They were these like sweat boxes, and they had shag carpeting, and they were made out of plywood. They were like gross. But I would run out there and I would pray, like, please just get me through this. Please just get me through this. Please just get me through this. You know, because I was terrified.
Yeah.
Because part of me knew that this was such a huge opportunity. But that other part of me was like, just like when I got Torsong, I'm like, what am I doing here? Like I became an actor 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing here?
We talked about this with Steve. There's this imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
When you're an actor sometimes that, you know, particularly at the beginning, that you're like, I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You know, but you want to be here.
Oh, yeah.
You made the choice to be here. So what else are you going to do? But particularly when you're younger, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say just actors either. I think especially within the arts, where a lot of times it is mistaken as the Meryl Streeps or the Diane Englishes. You see these people and you know them when they're at the top of the game, that it really builds up this idea of like, these aren't ordinary people. These aren't the people that you and I talk to. So if I'm here, something went wrong.
Yeah.
And that happens to the writers in that room. That happens to the designers. It happens to the actors. I think that there is something to the kind of misrepresentation of the arts sometimes. It's like everyone here is a normal person who had their break at some time.
That's right.
Yeah, no, we sort of cut to the good part of the story. And it's very rare in interviews with people that they talk about sort of the beginnings.
Yeah. I had a small part, one scene in Wall Street, the original Wall Street.
Yeah.
And I was beyond, because all I wanted to do was film and television. Because, like I said, I was in a big hurry. And I got there to the set, and I was, like, beyond nervous. And a PA was walking me to the, trailer, and she said, "How you doing?" I was like, "I'm really nervous." And she goes, "It's funny, I was talking to Charlie Sheen. His first job was Jeremiah Johnson or something like that.
I don't even know that.
And they were in a camping scene, and he's eating baked beans by the campfire, and his hand was shaking so bad that he couldn't get the beans in his mouth, And I kind of needed to hear that. It's like,
you do.
Because you think, like you said, you think Charlie Sheen rolls out of bed and he's Charlie Sheen.
Yep.
And that he didn't, because he's Martin Sheen's son, whatever, that he didn't have to go through any trials by fire, but...
Yeah, I think Harvey Keitel auditioned for the Actors Studio maybe like 5 times. Took him a while to get in, because I went, that was my master's program, was the Actors Studio. And so we particularly talk about those kind of stories. And that was the one that I remembered, because you think, oh, well, he's Harvey Keitel. Must have got in, because, God, was it? Maybe it wasn't 8, but it was a lot.
Yeah. I know, I waited tables with a guy, I won't say his name, but he was in the NYU program, and apparently all of his classmates were like, he really needs to give it up.
Aww.
Like, he was the guy nobody thought was going to make it. And he's a writer now, but he had a nice acting career before he became a writer.
I think at Yale they took Sigourney Weaver aside and went,
Yep.
So this is really not for you.
Oh, I love those stories.
Interesting.
They told Diane Weiss that she squinted too much and she'd never have a film career. I collect these stories.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love these stories. They're amazing.
Allison Janney was told she was too tall. All she could play were aliens and lesbians. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was the same interview, but when she was told that she was too tall, because she got that a lot, she said, "What about Sigourney Weaver?" And they said, "Well, she's pretty."
Ugh.
Like just, and I mean that's the problem with this business too, is that you are a commodity, and part of your commodity is the fact that of how you look.
Yep.
Which you have to not take personally, but is personal at the same time. So,
Well, it's why the term character actor is a euphemism.
yeah. I mean, I was told once in a manager interview, well, who on TV looks like you?
You're like, good
Wasn't
point.
that the point?
Right. Right. Isn't that good for me?
That's
Yeah.
what I said to her.
Well, it's so scary that doesn't even occur to them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
a lot of people just get in their positions because they hustle.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not like they you know what I mean? It's not like they have an artistic sensibility or whatever. They just hustle.
Yeah. I mean, it's business. It's show business.
Yeah.
So, Grant, I also want to ask you about those first days on set. Because one of my favorite things to watch in that first season was to watch you find Miles. And that moment when while I grew up watching the original series, a lot of my memories are of the later seasons and who everyone kind of settled into in character. Was there a moment on set where you felt like it started to really sing for you? Was there anything that was a struggle for you when you were finding him?
I don't think so. I just remember the opening scene in the pilot when I come out of the elevator and, she has that line about Adam West and I'm introducing myself to her, Miles Silverberg, and then we go into the, office and then Faith comes in and then we go outside and she slams the door in my face, and I turn around, and I look at one of the extras, and I go, and that wasn't in the script. You know what I mean? So that was like coming to me kind of right away. Just this
The nature thing.
yeah, and just like who this guy is. I never had an issue not knowing who this guy was. Never. He was so specifically drawn. And, I think you have to like somebody to play them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
quality.
I liked him. Like, I should say, I like him. You know what I mean? Like, I love him. So, like, that makes it so much easier to play.
Well, and villains don't think they're a villain.
Yeah.
No.
You have to be on the side of your character, even if as an audience member you might not be. And of course, we're all on Miles' side. But I don't know if you've listened to any of our revival recaps. We've only had 2. But one of my favorite things to watch of the revival so far is getting to see how Miles grew up. Because you're not playing Miles at 24. You're playing Miles now. And I love seeing how his neuroses have settled in him. I love seeing how, I loved seeing the tie on the head come back. But just the idea that it's not a caricature. It's a real person who grew up, and he's not the same neurotic little guy that he was when he started, but that guy is in him.
Yes. Yeah. And that's something I was a little anxious about. I was in my head about it. I was going, okay, it's 30 years later. I'm not 27, I'm 57. And the whole premise of this guy was he's young and he's in over his head.
Yeah.
And that's where the neurosis was coming from. So what's this going to look like? Like, am I going to be like a 57-year-old guy, like, you know what I mean? Like, being really neurotic, and is that going to play as well as a 27-year-old guy being, is that as attractive? Or is that as funny, or is it more pathetic? You know what I mean? Like, or will I be trying too hard? I was having some almost like a negative projection about it. And then we went out to LA to do these promos, and I had to be Miles in the promos. And it was like instantaneous. I was like, oh, I don't have to do a thing differently.
Yeah.
I really don't. All I have to do is be me now and say these lines and still be the guy. And I knew it right away. I knew it in the promo. I'm like, oh, this just came right back.
Yep.
So all those months of, how am I gonna manage this? Kind of went out the window. I was like, oh, it's just all here again.
Yeah.
So I haven't had to think about like, how am I gonna play him now or anything. It's just what they've given me to do has just, I think, lent itself to.
Yeah.
It really
I think
shows.
that's true. Like, I really appreciate that when we see Miles, it's sort of at a very heightened state.
Yeah.
So you get to see, the Miles that we know, and so people aren't completely jarred by it.
Right.
And then there's the moment in the car, I think the van in the second episode when
Yes.
you think you're going to go to jail, which is again a heightened situation.
Right.
There he is.
Yeah, and so then he settles, and I think that was a great way to start. So the audience goes, "Oh, that's the Miles that we remember."
Right.
Was him at his worst now.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not him normally.
Right.
Yeah. And so I
Right.
thought that was a really smart way to go. And it's been really wonderful to see mature Miles, that, the confidence that you would see him have, on and off now, I think is a lot more even.
Yeah.
Well, specifically that what I love is seeing mature Miles who's been there with Pat.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
And seeing like the new kid with the former new kid.
Yeah.
And it's very sweet. It's such a natural duo that
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would have naturally thought that was going to happen, but it's just so cool to see Miles, who has really been there with Pat.
And Diane really saw that before. Like, Diane had that in mind. She flat out said to me, I'm going to grow you two together. I see you two having a mentor-mentee
Oh, that's great.
sort of a relationship. She had that in mind. And Nick Dodani is such a confident performer.
He's awesome.
It's weird. Sometimes I feel like he sort of takes on, like, I don't know if you notice this, but like sometimes you cut over to our little, station there, and he's sitting in the chair. he's sitting in the chair doing the thing, you know what I mean? And I'm standing there, you know what I mean, with the
Headset?
And he acts like he belongs there. So sometimes I feel like almost like a little insecure around him. Like he has more confidence than me,
Definitely, yeah. Definitely Pat has more confidence than Miles did.
Yeah, mhm. Yeah,
Which
yeah.
has sort of been nice. Like, I particularly like when you dress him up like
Oh.
you.
Oh,
And then
buddy.
he loses it.
Yeah.
He loses all of that confidence.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great generational commentary. The idea of what's the young buck now like, especially because, and I will venture to say I feel like there was a bit of that in that first season with Miles and Murphy, that Miles had the younger generation's knowledge and interests, and this, while he was sometimes a neurotic mess, a brazen confidence that like he was going to do the right thing. Even when nobody else believed in him.
Yeah. Yeah, and you figure people have to get there somehow.
Yeah.
There's a reason he's in that position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can just sort of, I think, accept that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I feel like in the first season particularly, when you see Miles at his worst first, it's when he think he might get killed. Do you remember that episode, Nowhere to Run? And they're doing a story on a mob guy, and the mob guy says he's going to try to kill Miles because he doesn't kill women, so therefore Murphy's off the table.
Yep.
But Miles doesn't back down. He doesn't say, we're not going to do the story. He's freaking out, but he doesn't say no.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I
do you
completely
remember
forgot
that? Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, you were like
I
a
completely
trembling
forgot
mess
about
the
that.
entire episode, but
You're sleeping
Stuck
in
to your
the
guns.
studio, I think, at some
Oh,
point.
that's right. Oh, my
Yeah.
God, you're bringing it back for me. That's right. That's right.
Do you have any particular favorites from the first season? Because we just went through the first season that you can remember.
For some reason, it's almost like I have a harder time remembering, other than the pilot, I have a harder time breaking things down to seasons. I certainly remember the Brothers Silverberg, which was
That's one of our favorites. We just covered
yeah.
that. We actually
With
had
Barnett.
on as our third chair.
Yeah. That will forever be like etched in my mind. There's also an episode that Russ Woody wrote where I have an affair with the head of the network's
Here's to you,
wife.
Mrs.
Yes.
Kinsella.
Kinsella.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's season 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is season 2?
That's season 2.
Yeah, I mean, they were just giving me such great stuff.
Yeah.
I never had to worry about that.
So we have talked about this before, that your relationship with Candace has become quite infamous in a lot of the stories, particularly because apparently it got to the point where you guys couldn't look at each other without laughing. Can you talk a little bit about your professional relationship and your friendship with Candace?
It's got, when I first met Candace, it was at Diane's house, and we got together at her house to read the script before we were going to read it in front of the network the next day. And I just remember her standing there, and she went, Grant, and she already obviously knew who I was because I think she had been in the process. But I had never auditioned with her or anything like that. But I guess Diane had been keeping her abreast. But she is one of those people, like, when they put their attention on you, you're the only person in the world in that moment. You're just like, everything else fades to the, and you're just like, she's so captivating. And I don't know, we just would tickle each other all the time. Like there's a symbiosis. I think we enjoy each other.
Yeah, you can see.
I think we enjoy each other, and she cracks me up, and I think I do her every once in a while, and I think it works well. This you can't allow for chemistry.
Yeah.
You can't force chemistry. You can't make it happen. You can't, for whatever reason.
Well, all of you, the entire cast, you guys have great chemistry.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, because there's so many years under the belt, it's even stronger, I think.
Yeah.
There are so many moments when we recap something where we're trying to figure out if we're seeing Miles and Murphy cracking each other up or Candace and Grant. Like, there are so many times we're like, I think that came out of Candace and Grant.
Right. Yes.
Well, do you remember there's a very famous outtake from an episode where it's called Subpoena Envy, and Murphy goes to jail for not revealing a source. Do you remember this? So remind our audience, it is the scene where Murphy's been there for a while and Miles comes to visit her and she's a little out of it. And my understanding is that it took maybe like 12 minutes for you guys to do it.
That sounds right. We could not keep it together. And that was particularly bad. I don't know why they would have expected us to keep it together, because it's just one of those situations that's so absurd you can't not laugh. And I had to follow this. I mean, you've seen it, right? So she'd been knitting. Like the place just totally broke her. She went in all full of piss and vinegar, and then the place just broke
She
her.
go grandma or something?
Exactly. And she's she's singing "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow" while she's like knitting this thing that goes all the way across the room. And I'm following it across the room, and I get right up to her, and she's in this bathrobe, and she's got these like thick kind of Coke bottle glasses, and she's singing and she's knitting. She doesn't even know I'm there, and I go, Murphy, and then she stops knitting, stops singing, stops knitting, looks up and goes, Grandpa, and we must have lost it like 15 times. And to the point where Diane came out and was like, all right, it's not funny anymore.
That's what people said. They said that after a point, it was just like, okay, we can't anymore.
Yeah, you're keeping the audience here
but
way past, like, But it's like somebody tells you not to think of an elephant. It just got worse and worse and worse.
It's such a brilliant clip.
Yeah, I don't think the full 12 minutes is on that reel of outtakes, but it's pretty long.
I do notice in the final cut.
Oh, really?
On the thing that I do almost break, because she goes grandpa, and I think I like put my head down, which you can't tell I'm laughing, but it was to try to gather myself before I said the next line. So there was a momentary where I was going to go either way, and I didn't.
I feel like from the filmings I've been to, I've only really saw that happen once, not that long. I think it was the third episode, was the... I'm a 5'7" Jew with... Oh my goodness, my favorite line, I forget it. Anyway, the colitis line.
Small calves and colitis.
Yeah, I've had a lifetime of not getting what I want.
I was actually glad we finally did break, because we hadn't... it hadn't been a problem up to that point.
It had not.
But that laugh just went on so long. And we're standing there like looking at each other, and at a certain point...
I talked about it on the show, because it was amazing that it took forever for you to get even the punchline out.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of, and we're sort of jumping around, can you talk a little bit about the time that you got booed?
Yes, please.
You mean this year?
Yes.
Yes. What? Like
that was crazy.
Yeah. I know. You know what? You know when you think what you should have said afterwards. I wish I had said, "Oh, we're in New York now. We're in New York now. We're getting booed. I'm getting booed." You know. Yeah, I came out. I made an entrance too early, or I came out and
Well,
said,
it wasn't your fault because the elevator opened early.
Exactly.
Like, you're not gonna.
and you can't hear.
Yeah,
you
I'm sure you
you
can.
can't hear. And Faith was in the middle of her line, and I said my line coming out of the elevator, and it interrupted Faith, and they were like, "Ooh," you know. Yeah, it was. I think I had fun with it, but it was like,
did.
what is going on?
But the warm up guy had to be like, so guys, don't boo.
Don't boo the
What's
actor.
happening? It was crazy.
Well, you know, it's nice that they're that invested.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
These crowds love these characters very much, and we love our Corky. Don't you dare interrupt her.
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
I know. Everybody got very protective of Corky.
Oh yes.
So, what do you feel like the relationships with the characters have changed now from when you were originally on the show?
I don't know yet. You know, I like on the one hand, they all feel exactly the same, but I don't. You know, we've been so story oriented so far
Yeah.
with this first 13 that we haven't had too many episodes where we're exploring the relationships. So I don't know how they're different. I think we're sort of living off of what we did before in that area. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, we spent 10 years building those relationships, you know what I mean, and we're just gonna know they're there, and then we're gonna go tackle this stuff, and but I think, I don't know, hopefully we come back, and hopefully we get a chance to do, we get to see them, because as you know, like Faith and I were never married, and
So let's talk about that, because
Yeah, I was like, this was my thing. So one of the majority of feedback when the revival was announced was just fans being so excited to see everybody come back and how badly we needed this character to come back in this climate. Those of us remembering Dan Quayle really needed Murphy Brown to come back for this political cycle. But one of the great controversies within the fandom was that marriage and whether or not that was going to be acknowledged.
I think Diane was actually very wise in just sort of leaving it alone.
Yes, but that's my question, because I know that she said at the TCAs that they just weren't going to mention it. So is it that you've never been married, or just no one's going to talk about it?
I think we've never been married.
That's interesting.
Oh,
Because,
interesting.
I mean, she's been on record as saying, I never would have done it.
It's not my favorite thing either.
It's
Yeah.
not my favorite
Yeah.
thing either.
Yeah.
And it's a direction they went.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it.
It feels kind of a jump the shark moment.
Yeah.
I think so. So I think she was wise not to saddle us with that.
Yeah.
And then that opens up all sorts of possibilities. Faith can have a romantic life without being worried about
Yeah.
Miles is there and vice versa.
And also, I mean, they were friends longer than they were ever married.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
So I think that the audience can play it as, because it's not like you're not saying anything, you're just not talking about it. So if, as an actor playing it, that it never happened, because a lot of people online said that it was hard for them as people who are very into canon, as am I.
Yes.
And again, not a fan of it, but I still think you can still watch the show and it's still believable if you want to believe that they were married or you don't want to believe that they were married.
Right. We sort of haven't tipped the hand yet.
Yeah.
I mean, if John Goodman can come back from the dead,
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
If John Goodman can die and then they just pick up like that never happened,
Yep.
we can be married and just pick up like it never happened.
Will and Grace does not acknowledge the finale.
Exactly.
They do not. They just start over, which we talked about this when this revival was announced. We talked about some of the revivals that are out and how we are both still struggling with the Will and Grace retcon in its own way, because it's hard for me to watch that, I have to be honest. As much as I love seeing them back, that finale was really significant.
Me too.
And there's a lot of character development that I wonder, is it out the window? Something with Corky and Miles is, in that very first pilot episode, we talk about everyone in your apartment and talking to you. And there is an element to Faith's performance that could be that you guys have just been friends for a long time. It can also be that she knows you very well on multiple levels and knows how to deal with you. But it's true to Lauren's point. The characters were friends and colleagues much longer than they were romantic interests.
Right.
And people do actually move on from short-lived marriages and are perfectly capable of working together and being friends and so on. So I think within headcanon, it's perfectly acceptable for us to go either way with it as fans.
It's also funny, too, if you had said that they had just dated as opposed to being married. That has some sort of, more weight for people. But they didn't even date before they were married. Right? You guys just sort of ran off and got married. So it has sort of a stamp on it, so it seems more legitimate. Not legitimate, that's terrible. But if you had said, oh, they had dated for what, like a year and a half? Like, it wasn't that long. I mean, you were off the show by the time you guys got divorced, but it was not that long. I'm really good friends with some people that I like dated in college for like a year and a half, and it just didn't work out.
Right.
That happens a lot. I think it's believable because we have a segment on the show called Retcon Theater.
Retcon Theater.
We'll go through the classic series. We will jokingly go, well, okay, this doesn't make sense because.
Right.
But then we'll come up with a reason as to why it would make sense.
We'll
it
fix
was
it.
probably this or this happened. And we go, okay, now we made it make sense.
We'll work our way through those wrinkles.
Yeah.
We'll massage those out.
So we're used to it.
I like that.
Thank you.
You can make it work for you.
Yeah. Which is what you do as an actor anyway.
Yes.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
it's tools that we were taught. So it's like you can't not watch the show. Some of the things I've already done, as I watched it because I have that actor brain.
Yep.
I'm sure Jesse has as well.
Things have to make sense to you, don't
Yeah.
you find?
Absolutely.
Like, we just had a little moment in this episode we just shot where, Jake says, I'm getting a big, promotion at the Wolf Network. And we sort of start talking to him about, well, you might be asked to do certain things that you might not want to do, kind of a thing. And I was trying to approach it kind of gingerly, and they didn't want me to. But I was
interesting.
But I was like, yeah, but like in real life, if a friend said, I got a series, you don't hit them with, yeah, but I hear the showrunner is a real bastard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
just don't do that, Or if you bring it, you know what I mean? If you're bringing up something, potentially negative or alarming, you try to couch it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because
And this is someone you've known since he was born.
Exactly. So that's all I mean is like, things have to make sense.
Absolutely.
It's like if you're basically like, I wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't do, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Well, because if you stop to think that, if you as the actor inhabiting this person stops to think that, the audience is going to stop to think that.
good point.
So for you to be able to sell that, it has to be something that the brain is going to agree with,
That's right.
because we're going to notice. Like your audiences are very smart and they pick up on everything. Like you said, if you walk in with resentment, it's going to be read. And if you as the performer are just trying to make something work, the audience sees that.
Yes. Don't you find there are certain actors you watch and you're like, you know what? Technically, I get it. They're such a good actor, but I'm getting something from them.
Yes.
That I'm just
Yep.
is taking me out of it, or makes me uncomfortable,
Yeah.
or I don't want to spend time with this person, or
Thank you so much for listening to part 1 with Grant Shaud. You should join us again for part 2.
And you, in the meantime, please let us know what you thought about part 1. You can follow us on social media at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. That's the third one, at Murphy Brown Pod. And our website is murphybrownpod.com.
If you'd like to help out the podcast, we have 2 ways that you can do that. You can donate on our Patreon, which has different levels. You can find that link on our FAQ on our website. Each level has different cool things that come with it, stickers, special content. There will definitely be outtakes from this episode on the Patreon. And then every month, at the level that you're at, you will be contributing to us being able to literally put on the podcast for you.
Yes, we are currently wearing headphones thanks to our Patreon supporters.
Thank you, guys. Or if you're like, you know what, I just want to give you one lump sum, you can actually go on our website and you can donate through PayPal. There's under the donate button. You can send money to our email at murphybrownpod@gmail.com, or you can send your thoughts to murphybrownpod@gmail.com. Or if you just want to support the podcast in a free way, we still encourage that as well. You can go on iTunes and leave us a review to help promote the podcast and put it out there for more people.
And we really look forward to sharing the second part of this interview with you soon. We'll see you then.
Bye.